Angelina Jolie scored a huge victory in her long-going custody battle with Brad Pitt. Let's break it down. My name's Christopher Melcher. I'm a California attorney, and my passion is about making legal issues easy to understand and telling the story behind the story. I want to talk about Brangelina, the long-going 5-year child custody dispute between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. All their issues relating to their marriage seem to be resolved except for custody. And this case has gone on and on and on, which is remarkable for a celebrity case because most of these settle quickly and quietly, but not this one. It just never seems to end. And I want to back up a step to talk about the judge that Angelina had removed today. Judge Ouderkirk was a criminal court judge until he retired and somehow knew these parties well enough that he officiated their wedding, meaning he was the judge who was there in France when they were married, and then he was there when they divorced because they selected Judge Ouderkirk as what we call a privately compensated temporary judge. Under the California Constitution, parties may agree on the appointment or selection of a either retired judge or an attorney with 10 or more years of experience to be the judge. And the Superior Court would appoint that person and give them judgely powers to act. And this is common in celebrity cases and big money cases where people want to decide who the decision maker is. There's some benefits of that because this judge that they're selecting is very experienced and they get some say on that. And it's supposed to be handled in the same way that a public court proceeding would be, meaning that paperwork is filed with the clerk and all the hearings are open for the public. But in reality, it doesn't really work that way. And it's a lot more quiet than a publicly held case. So these two parties agreed on Judge Ouderkirk and used him for years. Now, when Judge Ouderkirk was appointed, he was required by law to make what we're calling disclosures of any dealings that he's had with the parties or their counsel. And Judge Ouderkirk disclosed that he had cases with Brad Pitt's lawyers, and he also had cases with Angelina's lawyers, and he disclosed that. And over time, his appointment order expired and he was reappointed, and he made further disclosures, and there was no problem with that. There were a lot of cases that he disclosed that he had with Brad Pitt's lawyers, and Angelina and her legal team was fine with that until Judge Ouderkirk criticized Angelina. And he was becoming more impatient or critical of the parenting decisions or positions that she was taking in the litigation, and eventually awarded Brad Pitt joint legal custody. And it was around that time that Angelina then opposed Judge Ouderkirk. So she was fine with him before, but she asked Judge Ouderkirk to make a further disclosure saying, hey, Judge Ouderkirk, do you have any other cases with Brad Pitt that you haven't told me about? And Judge Ouderkirk revealed, yes, there were, I believe, 2 other cases, maybe 3 other cases that he had with Brad Pitt's lawyers that weren't disclosed. And she made a motion to disqualify him. And under the rules, that is improper. There was supposed to be a disclosure of further cases that Judge Ouderkirk was hired by Brad's counsel, and he failed to disclose that. And so that's why she filed the motion. And it went here before the California Supreme Court, and the decision came out. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this up on the screen, and so we can go through just briefly some of the provisions. Now, this decision was filed July 23, and it's by the California Court of Appeal. Now, this is what we call an intermediary appellate court, and there is the California Supreme Court that's higher that could grant review of this if it wanted to, but I don't know that it would. Now, in this decision, they're going through the history and talking about Judge Ouderkirk as being selected by these parties. And they agreed to his appointment. They actually also agreed to pay this judge, which again is common. They note that Judge Ouderkirk had officiated their wedding in France in 2014. I really don't understand that background. That does seem strange to me that he would be the person officiating their wedding and then also officiating their divorce, if that's a thing. But hey, they understood he had that prior role and they agreed to it, and nothing in Angelina's appeal or motion for disqualification was critical of the fact that he had been involved in their wedding ceremony also. And they noted in the decision that Judge Ouderkirk, when he was first appointed, had made a disclosure of all the cases that he had with counsel for both sides. And that was accepted by Angelina and her legal team. Now, the thing is that during the oral argument on this decision, one of the justices said, why is it okay, or why was it okay to Angelina to know about 12 cases that Judge Ouderkirk had with Brad's counsel, but then it wasn't okay when she found out that there were 14? And when I heard that comment, I thought, oh, well, she's going to lose, because this does sound like a technical argument and more that was strategic, that she only raised the problem about the additional cases when she was criticized by Judge Ouderkirk. So I thought, if I was going to put my legal dollars on this, that she was going to lose this appeal. And had I bet, I would have lost. Now, they also went through that there were multiple times where Judge Ouderkirk was reappointed by agreement, and that there were further disclosures of matters that were handled by Judge Ouderkirk with counsel for both parties. Now, and this, again, went on and on and on all the way to the year 2020, and that's when we kind of started having problems. There was a judgment of dissolution entered in 2019, meaning the dissolving their status as marital parties. One thing this decision does not cover, when they say, hey, Judge Ouderkirk's out, we certainly know going forward that he won't be the judge, but what about all the decisions that he made before? Usually when somebody's disqualified, it's for all purposes right from the get-go. And that would mean that any decision that he made would be void. So that's not covered by here. That may have to be decided later on by the new judge, and that could be yet other things that they're going to fight about. But I guess technically it's possible that the judgment of dissolution is void because it was entered while Judge Ouderkirk was serving as the temporary judge. So, who knows? Maybe they're still married. So it was after July 21, 2020, when Brad Pitt had filed a request for a new custody order. He wanted more time with the children, that Angelina complained, or I should say, asked for the further disclosure. Now, there was no real reason to ask for the further disclosure that I could tell at that point. It wasn't like his appointment order was coming up. It had already been approved through the end of the year or 6 months after the judgment was entered, whichever came first. So, I'm sorry, whichever came later. So in July of 2020, his expiration date wasn't coming around. And she says, oh, well, she just thought, why not just ask for a further disclosure? And then behold, here are these two other cases that were undisclosed. So my suspicion is that she was becoming unhappy with Judge Ouderkirk, and she was using this disclosure as an opportunity to get rid of him. And, hey, that's the thing lawyers do. And when it was disclosed that there were these other cases, she asked for him to be disqualified, and he refused. And she did make clear that she didn't really have a problem with Judge Ouderkirk, his role, his decisions in the case, before he took on these additional 2 or 3 cases with Pitt's lawyers. It was only afterwards. So that may signal how this might turn out later on about the effectiveness of Judge Ouderkirk's orders in the past. But I don't think that she gets to pick and choose those. So stay tuned on that. Now the Court of Appeal did say that this was an ethical breach. It wasn't a technical breach like I was thinking. It was an ethical breach, and that would cause a objective person who was aware of the facts to entertain doubt as to his impartiality, and therefore disqualification was required. And that's coming from the court, and they know these type of things. Now, what's also noteworthy here is there's a concurring opinion, meaning this isn't part of the decision of the court. This is an extra kind of statement by one of the justices, Siegel. And in this part of the opinion, he goes and makes an attack against the private judge system. So he's saying, look, the rule is that you can't pay a judge. It's kind of called like bribery. And it's actually a misdemeanor for a judge to receive payment for doing their official act. But the California rules of court allow a temporary judge to receive compensation for their work. So that's not a crime. But nevertheless, is it a good idea to be compensating private judges? And this has been a problem in our system for a while. There's some who will say two systems of justice. And can a judge really be impartial when they're being compensated by the parties? Some say yes, others question that, like Justice Siegel is doing. And so we may see some changes here to this system, good or bad, as a result of this case. So good for Angelina. She got the victory that she wanted, but is this really good for the family? In my view, you can't win a custody case. The kids get hurt every time. This has been going on 5 years. One of their children is now 18, is getting aged out. Other kids might age out before this is over. Do the parties really need to fight this long over custody? Is whatever happened on that plane in 2016 so important as to what's going on now in 2021? Has really anything happened in the last 5 years that would justify this much of a fight? I understand Angelina wanted to call the children as witnesses, meaning getting up on the stand and testifying in front of their father. She has a right to ask for that. The court doesn't necessarily have to permit it. They can take testimony by alternate means if it wants to. And that was one of her criticisms of Judge Ouderkirk, that he didn't allow the children to get on the stand and testify. Now, is it such a good thing for them to testify? Really, what are they going to say? And I understand, and I'm sure she believes that there is a reason for her having most of the custodial time and her wanting to limit Brad's time. But is she really balancing the harm that she thinks Brad might do to them versus the harm that will certainly occur by putting him on the stand, by letting this go on another 5 years? I don't know that she's doing that. And because we have to look at the cost on children in these cases. This is not a fight over money. This is a fight over kids, and kids lose. So I'm hoping that things will move quicker in the case and they'll resolve their differences, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. This is sort of a do-over, and there's going to be a new judge appointed, probably in public court unless they agree to another private judge. And it's going to go on. And I just don't know that that's such a good idea, but we will see what happens. Now, I appreciate you watching here. If you're finding this valuable, please go ahead and subscribe to my little baby channel. I would appreciate that. Here is my Twitter handle, super active on there. So if you want to connect up with me on there or comment, please. I look forward to meeting you on Twitter. If you think that I got something wrong, go ahead and send me a message or put it in the comments, because I want this to be accurate. And obviously, everything that I say here is just my own opinion. It's not an opinion of my law firm, and it's not legal advice. I appreciate you joining me, and I will see you next time.